it is still far off from the reality. And also, one more thing one needs to look at is that when one says that you have moved in ranking from say 134 to 130, and say particularly with respect to electricity, I mean your position has significantly improved. There are two things. One is the relative ranking, one is the absolute improvement. Now, what is mentioned here is a relative ranking, not True. The absolute movement. So it is equally. So suppose, I mean, electricity connection takes 30 days. If I have improved it to 25 days, it's an improvement. But in relative terms, if somebody else has done even better than that, my ranking would still not be improved.
Right.
And on the other hand, if someone is doing worse than me, my ranking will keep on moving that. True. So there are a lot of issues.
But isn't ranking all about that? Isn't it largely relative in nature?
It is relative in nature, but somewhere if you really want to improve upon, then I guess the place where you are, from there how much you have moved forward, not vis-a-vis what others have done or not done.
And have we been able to delve deeper into it to know exactly where, because if it says that at least in terms of getting electricity our ranking has improved, so is it more relative in nature where you see that on the ground things haven't really improved that much?
Particularly with respect to electricity, I mean the finding probably indicates that it is both. I mean in the relative terms as well as in absolute terms you have moved a little ahead. But again, I'm saying that one has to read it, understand it, and draw implication with some amount of caution.
Okay.
Even though if we feel good about it.
Fine. But there is reason to feel good about it, Shantanu?
Well, I think the World Bank reports are to be listened and ignored, to be very honestly. It just fills up some newspaper space, honest. And beyond that, nobody takes them seriously.
Certainly, I mean, everything about from poverty to richness to whatnot.
We are very lucky that it's just come in just before we are hosting the Africa Summit. So I think it's just a leg up. We can talk about it and we can discuss it, and it finds references in all the ministers, including the finance minister comments. The government came into power after May last year. And I think they have taken into account major developments last year up to June, and in that interaction they had a video conferencing. The World Bank officials made it very clear that whatever steps the Indian government, the current government, BJP led NDA government has taken will actually reflect next year. So I won't jump the board. I'll feel happy. I think it gives me two significant indicators. First, the center has to be cautious because there is a serious issue of doubt over what we call getting easy credit and all what we call paying taxes. Let's keep in mind the huge Vodafone issue and retrospective taxes that became such a bane that investments were hurt. And also, we also have to keep in mind states which do well, they will somehow help the government or the nation go high on the ladder. Delhi and Mumbai, because of less outages in their electricity, the way they were managed, the discoms were managed, have proved a point. So I take these two inferences from this report. Otherwise, any World Bank report is a bit of chest thumping, and it's almost like the FIFA rankings. Like in football, we don't even bother. But if it's a cricket ranking, we would have bothered that we have slipped in the test or the ODI. I think the World Bank has said that India needs to make certain measures. Just before this report came out, the previous week, the World Bank country director had a press conference, and where he said that one point was very clear: the GST must pass through. Yes, so I think the World Bank knows what India needs to do to go a little higher.
But as if I just go by how it has been interpreted by the newspapers, by the media in general, Professor Chandramohan, they've said that at least this report brings some sort of respite and some sort of good news for the NDA government, which has been criticized for some time by some quarters about its slow-paced reforms and the speed of reforms being, so slow.
Respite, I won't put it that way. It's just a temporary mood elevator that all its fervent efforts to improve the rank at all costs for over a year have yielded some dividend. So in that sense, there is, in some sense, it is a temporary mood booster. But it does not say anything at all about the concern of investors worldwide regarding the India story. It doesn't say anything, as you mentioned, things about whether reforms are going ahead or not. This type of doing business indicators don't capture many of the things that investors look for before they take a long-term bet in investing in this country. So in some sense, say like for instance, suppose they have concerns over taxation, the regime of taxes, the Vodafone type of issue which he mentioned. Here, that indicator on taxes is the indicator how much time you take to file. Yeah, that's about all. It doesn't tell you about whether there's tax terrorism or whether that charge is, you know, you have got a respite from that sort of perception of investors and things like that. So in that sense, it's a long, long way to go, and the reason for this is this: these indicators are only a partial view, a very synoptic view of certain superficial indicators to start a business. How long does it take to start a business? How long does it take to close it? What is the cost per container?
That's right.
You know, these type of stuff. But actually, the World Bank, if you want to put it this way, they do a far more solid called the enterprise surveys. Along with the doing business indicators, they ask thousands of companies, what is their actual experience with respect to some of these indicators? How long has it taken? And you will be quite surprised that, you know, you may, as you said, 29 days to start a business with so many procedures. But that is just a representative SME. Mukesh Ambani will not take that much time to start if he wants to read a geo.com, if he wants to start, you know, a type of thing. So it varies. There are very sharp variations in the time taken to meet some of these criteria, which vary across the corporate spectrum. You know, the big players have a relatively easier time. The SMEs have a little more difficult. The smaller you get, the more difficulty you have to deal with the Inspector Raj and things like that. So this is just an average for a representative company. It does not indicate anything about outcomes on the ground, which the World Bank captures separately.
But what about the fact that there had been comparison with the previous years where the starting a business in India would have meant 100 days more than what it takes now?
Let's cut to the chase by the simple thing. Since we have leaped 12 paces in forward, and that largely reflects, as my panelists have said, one is on electricity and one is